To start with, I can give you a little bit of background. As Anna said, right now I'm commuting between Sweden and the US. I'm here every other week, and I watched the movie Up in the Air on my way over yesterday, and I feel right at home how you plan your security check. And I can also probably do the loyalty card game as well. Just a little bit about me. I would say I'm a typical sales guy. I have managed to skip college and still get an MBA. It's not a path that I would advise anyone to do, but I did it. Before starting sales gen, I worked for IBM for 8 years, so any time during this session, if I get too boring or too many acronyms, you know where that's coming from. And my entire career, I worked very much as an interpreter, I would say, between technologists and customers in the market. I don't know how much you dug into the Swedish culture, but Sweden is very much engineers. And in Sweden, there's the drivers of people's lives is fulfillment, accomplishment, and recognition from colleagues. And if you go to California, they'll say it's fear, greed, and envy. But there's a significant difference how you are regarded as having accomplished something in Sweden. And that's primarily we'll lift our engineers to the air, and we typically talk bad about the salespeople. I would say the vast majority of the salespeople Sweden had probably left 100 years ago to the US. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs that decided to, strong wills that decided to leave Europe when it was very poor. On my side of the family, I would say I have the majority of the bloodlines in the US more so than in Sweden. Actually, it was my grandmother's uncle who founded Greyhound once upon a time in Milwaukee. So for those of you who have ever been on a Greyhound, that's a Swedish company. His name was originally Mattis Järk, but if you translate that to Mattis Jerk, that's not a good name in English, so he changed it. So his name then became Erik Wickman. Anyhow, so House of GreenTech, to just define that for you, that's a Swedish-American trading house focused on green technology and clean energy solutions and taking them to market in Northern America. So that's what we do. And it's important for us to always mention that it's a Swedish-American company. We always try to have it sort of as a not Swedish, not American company. 50% of the board is sitting in the US and 50% is sitting in Sweden or in Europe. And but over time, the vast majority of the organization will be located here in the US. But before I get more into the House of GreenTech, I just want to give you some data points on where we started off and why we ended up where we are today with this green technology initiative at House of GreenTech. I left IBM to start a company that is called SalesGen. That was all about sales productivity and improving companies' ability to execute on their plans with operational sales force. You could say that I tried to do that at IBM for a long time, but no one at IBM is really interested in productivity. They're more interested in getting a good retirement plan and holding on to their job more than actually going to work and trying to enhance productivity. So I decided to leave. I worked a lot within the IT space, and I started going to the US, seeking out companies in the US to take them to Northern Europe, and we could actually offer Salesforce without setting up your own operations. Now what happened was the Americans don't really care about going to Europe, because your inner market is so vast, and also the IT companies founded today in Silicon Valley are no longer on a built-to-last schedule. They're on a built-to-flip schedule. They invent a product, they gear it with the right management, toss in a ton of money, get 1 or 2 clients, and sell it off to Oracle, IBM, or Microsoft in 18 to 24 months. And that's the whole game. And going back to my comment about the mentality in California going to be fear, greed, and envy, you know, they're not really going to buy a new sales boat because they succeed in Sweden. Because typically, if you look at IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, or any one type of large corporation, Sweden is 1% of their global revenues. The Nordic region is 2%. So for them, it's not a big game changer to go there. Now what happened was that at the same time we had, the US had an ambassador to Sweden called Michael Wood. And he was appointed by George Bush. And the interesting thing here is his single mission, he named one big thing, was ordered by George Bush to go out and find green technology, which I think a lot of people in the US would find slightly contradictory given the presidency he ran. But that was actually his, so you could call it a skunk works that they did in Sweden. So Sweden received a lot of recognition in the US for green technology. And that was the point in time I was going back and forth, and 2.5 years later I accumulated 34 trips, I think. And the Americans said, well, you know, we don't really care about this IT stuff, but don't you guys have green technology? And I said, yeah, sure we do. We have tons of it. You know, it's everywhere in our society. So we started to try and bring that into the US, and we actually got a much better response than finding companies going the other way. So we, you know, could say with hair on fire, we decided to, rather than taking US companies going this way, decided to take green technology going that way. Now what happened was, you recognize these companies, and I'll come back to their individual challenges later, they don't really want to go to other markets necessarily. Because the green technology space, if you have inventors in the IT industry, in the green technology space you have inventors who are also idealists. And they rather stay home and put another layer of coat of paint on their products. Some of them don't even recognize that they are green technology companies. They don't want to go anywhere. They're also soaked with government initiatives in Sweden, and which, by the way, they pay for pretty much everything they do. So they don't really have a market-driven mentality on how to get out of the country. So they're hammering away and think, you know, if I build the greatest product in the world, the customers will come over and rip it out of my hands. And I think, you know, one of the, we tried different initiatives to have them pay. I know here, especially in Washington, everyone works out of a retainer. You pay me X $1,000 a month, I'll do this for you for 12 months, and it just keeps going. None of these companies will pay you a dime to do that. But they want access to everything over here. But they're also used to getting everything for free from the government in Sweden. They'll even pay their plane tickets to go to shows. And actually, my epiphany on this was we had an initiative to try to draw, you know, pay us $1,000 for 12 months. We'll do something for you at least in the US, so you get, you know, a foothold, a beachhead, something. But it was not happening. And I was at the SAC E-Days event in Savannah last year. And there were 350 people, I think, for 3 days, all focused on GreenTech. And I sifted through the attending list, and 2 people out of 350 were actually persons that represented green technology companies. But what we had in the audience was, you know, I don't know, 150 local politicians from Sweden going on, you know, this political tourism trip. A lot of people that wanted to be in the space, but none of the companies were represented. And then I recognized, you know, we said, sure, there's going to be companies that will come into the US market and be successful, but the vast majority will not make it. They will come into the US market in 10 years with a Betamax tape to VHS market. So we decided this is a great opportunity, so let's us instead establish, have these guys stay at home, work on their products, make sure they're the best, you know, things as sliced bread or the beer can, maybe you say in college. And we'll take up the cost, and we'll build the sales force, and we'll get the contract with the customers on the US market. So that is what we do as a trading house. We sign contracts in Sweden, and by the way, Swedes love to have a contract with a Swedish company and not one who's under US law. And then we here in the US will sign the contract with the US customer. So we'll source the products out of Sweden.